A K-9 dog saved a parade from a hidden explosive. His heroic act went viral. The small town of Willowbrook bustled with anticipation as residents prepared for the annual Unity Parade, a beloved tradition that celebrated the community's spirit and resilience. Colorful banners fluttered in the gentle breeze, and the streets hummed with the excited chatter of friends and neighbors. Amidst the joyful preparations, a darker presence lurked in the shadows. Vincent Riker, a disgraced former military contractor, skulked through the alleyways, his heart filled with resentment and bitterness. The town had rejected him, labeling him as a troublemaker and an outsider. Now, fueled by a twisted desire for revenge, Riker had devised a plan to shatter Willowbrook's unity and spirit in a single, devastating act. Officer Daniel Hayes adjusted his uniform as he arrived at the police station, ready for another day of serving and protecting his beloved community. By his side trotted Max, his loyal K-9 partner and closest companion. Max, a German shepherd with a keen sense of duty, had once been part of a bomb detection program that had fallen victim to budget cuts. But Hayes had seen the potential in the abandoned dog and had personally retrained him, forging an unbreakable bond built on trust and shared purpose. As Hayes and Max set out to conduct routine security sweeps along the parade route, they were unaware of the hidden danger that awaited them. Riker, believing that fear was the ultimate source of power, had planted an explosive device beneath the main viewing platform, where the town's leaders and dignitaries would gather to watch the festivities. The morning sun climbed higher in the sky, and the streets began to fill with excited families, their faces painted with vibrant colors and their hands waving miniature flags. Children skipped alongside their parents, their laughter ringing out like tiny bells. The aroma of freshly baked goods wafted from the local bakery, mingling with the scent of blooming flowers in the town square. As Hayes and Max weaved through the gathering crowd, the dog's keen nose twitched, detecting an unfamiliar and alarming scent. Max's ears perked up, and his body tensed, signaling to his handler that something was amiss. Hayes, trusting his partner's instincts without hesitation, followed Max's lead as the dog guided him toward the viewing platform. Unaware of the impending danger, the residents of Willowbrook continued their joyful preparations for the Unity Parade. Laughter and excited chatter filled the air as friends and neighbors greeted each other warmly, exchanging hugs and well wishes. Children darted between the legs of the adults, their faces alight with anticipation for the colorful floats and marching bands that would soon fill the streets. Behind the scenes, a dedicated team of volunteers worked tirelessly to ensure that every detail of the parade was perfect. They hung streamers and balloons, arranged chairs for the elderly and disabled, and double-checked the sound system that would carry the music and announcements throughout the route. Among the volunteers was Emily Reed, a young woman known for her kind heart and unwavering commitment to her community. Emily had grown up in Willowbrook and had always loved the Unity Parade, seeing it as a symbol of the town's strength and resilience. As she helped to decorate the viewing platform, her mind wandered to the challenges the town had faced in recent years: economic downturns, natural disasters, and the loss of beloved community members. Yet, through it all, Willowbrook had always come together, united in their love and support for one another. Across town, in a small, neatly maintained house, retired schoolteacher Margaret Hawkins was putting the finishing touches on a batch of her famous sugar cookies. The sweet aroma filled her cozy kitchen, and she hummed a cheerful tune as she worked. Margaret had been a fixture in Willowbrook for decades, touching the lives of generations of students with her wisdom, patience, and unwavering belief in the potential of every child. As she carefully packaged the cookies to share with her friends and neighbors at the parade, Margaret reflected on the many changes she had witnessed in her beloved town. Through the years, she had seen Willowbrook weather storms both literal and figurative, always emerging stronger and more united than before. In her heart, she knew that today would be no different. Meanwhile, Officer Hayes and Max continued their security sweep, the dog's keen senses guiding them closer to the hidden threat. As they approached the viewing platform, Max's body grew tense, and a low growl rumbled in his throat. Hayes, his hand resting reassuringly on his partner's back, scanned the area with a trained eye, searching for any sign of danger. Unbeknownst to them, Vincent Riker watched from the shadows, his heart pounding with anticipation as he waited for the moment when his plan would come to fruition. He believed that by shattering the town's sense of unity and safety, he would finally wield the power he had always craved. But he had underestimated the strength and resilience of Willowbrook's spirit and the courage of those who stood ready to defend it. As the final preparations for the Unity Parade neared completion, a sense of excitement and anticipation filled the air. The streets were lined with smiling faces, young and old, all eager to celebrate the bond that held their community together. The sun shone brightly overhead, casting a warm glow on the colorful decorations and banners that adorned every lamppost and storefront. Officer Hayes and Max, having completed their initial security sweep, took a moment to catch their breath near the viewing platform. Hayes reached down and affectionately ruffled Max's fur, praising the dog for his unwavering focus and dedication. Max, in turn, looked up at his handler with adoring eyes, his tail wagging with pride. As they stood together, a young girl approached them, her face alight with curiosity and wonder. She held a small bouquet of wildflowers in her hand, and with a shy smile, she offered them to Officer Hayes. "Thank you for keeping us safe," she said softly, her voice filled with innocent gratitude. Hayes knelt down to accept the flowers, his heart warmed by the child's gesture. "It's our pleasure," he replied, his voice gentle and reassuring. "Max and I are here to make sure everyone has a wonderful time at the parade." The girl's smile widened, and she reached out to pet Max, giggling as the dog nuzzled her hand. For a moment, the weight of the world seemed to lift, and the true spirit of Willowbrook shone through, a spirit of kindness, compassion, and unity. As the girl skipped away to rejoin her family, Hayes and Max exchanged a knowing glance. They both understood the importance of moments like these, the small acts of kindness and connection that formed the heart of their community. But their brief respite was shattered by a sudden change in Max's demeanor. The dog's ears perked up, and his body grew tense once more. He turned his head towards the viewing platform, his nose twitching as he caught the scent of something dangerous and out of place. Hayes, trusting his partner's instincts without question, immediately sprang into action. He unclipped Max's leash and gave the command to search, watching as the dog bounded towards the platform, his nose to the ground and his tail held high. As Max neared the source of the scent, Vincent Riker emerged from his hiding place, his face contorted with rage and desperation. He held a remote detonator in his hand, his finger poised over the trigger. "Stay back," he shouted, his voice shaking with barely contained fury. "One more step, and I'll blow this whole place sky high." Hayes, his heart pounding in his chest, raised his hands in a gesture of calm. "Mr. Riker, please, let's talk about this," he said, his voice steady and even. "You don't have to do this. We can find another way." But Riker was beyond reason, consumed by his twisted desire for revenge. "No more talking," he snarled, his finger tightening on the detonator. "It's time for Willowbrook to pay for what it's done to me." In that moment, Max lunged forward, his teeth bared and his eyes locked on the detonator. Riker, caught off guard by the dog's sudden attack, stumbled backwards, the detonator flying from his grasp. Max snatched it up in his powerful jaws, crushing the device and rendering it useless. Hayes moved quickly, tackling Riker to the ground and cuffing his wrists behind his back. The would-be bomber struggled and cursed, but it was too late. His plan had been foiled, and the town's unity had triumphed over his hate. As the reality of what had almost happened sank in, a hush fell over the gathered crowd. But then, slowly at first and then with growing enthusiasm, they began to cheer. They cheered for Max, for his bravery and quick thinking. They cheered for Officer Hayes, for his calm under pressure and his unwavering commitment to their safety. And they cheered for Willowbrook itself, for the unbreakable bond that held them together, no matter what challenges they faced. In the aftermath of the foiled bombing attempt, a sense of shock and disbelief rippled through the crowd. Parents hugged their children tightly, tears of relief streaming down their faces. Friends and neighbors clung to one another, whispering words of comfort and reassurance. Officer Hayes, his adrenaline still pumping, called for backup to secure the scene and take Vincent Riker into custody. Max stood by his side, his tail wagging slowly as he sensed the change in the emotional atmosphere. The dog had done his duty, and now he looked to his handler for guidance and praise. Hayes knelt down and wrapped his arms around Max, burying his face in the dog's thick fur. "Good boy," he whispered, his voice choking with emotion. "You saved so many lives today. I'm so proud of you." Max leaned into his handler's embrace, his warm brown eyes shining with unconditional love and loyalty. For a moment, the two were lost in their own world, a partnership forged in trust and tested in the face of danger. As the initial shock began to wear off, the town's leaders stepped forward to address the crowd. Mayor Liz Chan, a petite woman with a fierce determination in her eyes, climbed onto the viewing platform and raised her hands for silence. "Friends, neighbors, and fellow residents of Willowbrook," she began, her voice ringing out clear and strong. "Today, we have witnessed a true act of heroism. Officer Daniel Hayes and his brave partner, Max, have saved countless lives and preserved the spirit of unity that defines our community." The crowd erupted into applause, their voices rising in a chorus of gratitude and appreciation. Mayor Chun waited for the noise to subside before continuing. "But let us not forget the true lesson of this day," she said, her gaze sweeping over the sea of faces before her. "The strength of Willowbrook lies not in any one individual, but in the bonds we share with one another. In the face of darkness and fear, we stand together, united in our love and compassion for our neighbors." Heads nodded in agreement, and hands reached out to clasp one another in a show of solidarity. The mayor's words had struck a chord, resonating with the deep-seated values that had guided Willowbrook through countless challenges and triumphs. And so, Mayor Chun concluded, a smile spreading across her face, "Let us celebrate this day not as a victory over hate, but as a reminder of the power we hold when we come together as one. Let the Unity Parade be a symbol of our resilience, our hope, and our unwavering commitment to each other." With those words, the crowd erupted into cheers once more, their voices rising in a joyful chorus. The band struck up a lively tune, and the parade began to move forward, a vibrant procession of color and sound. As the floats and marchers made their way down the street, Officer Hayes and Max fell into step beside them, their presence a reassuring reminder of the safety and security that had been preserved. Children waved and called out to Max, their faces alight with excitement and wonder, while adults nodded in silent gratitude to the brave officer and his four-legged partner. And so, the Unity Parade continued, a celebration not just of Willowbrook's past, but of its future, a future built on the foundation of love, compassion, and the unbreakable bonds of community. Vincent Riker's hateful act had been a reminder of the darkness that could lurk in the hearts of men, but it had also been a catalyst for something far more powerful, the light of hope and the strength of a town united. In the days following the Unity Parade, Willowbrook found itself in the national spotlight. News of Max's heroic actions spread like wildfire, and media outlets from around the country descended upon the small town, eager to capture the story of the brave K-9 and his handler. Officer Daniel Hayes, unused to the sudden attention, found himself thrust into the role of reluctant celebrity. Reporters clamored for interviews, and cameras followed his every move. But through it all, Hayes remained humble and dedicated, always redirecting the focus back to the true hero of the day, his loyal partner, Max. "Max is the real star here," he would say, his hand resting affectionately on the dog's head. "I'm just lucky to have him by my side." For his part, Max seemed to take the newfound fame in stride. He basked in the extra attention and treats that came his way, his tail wagging with joy every time a child reached out to pet him or a grateful citizen offered him a heartfelt thank you. But even as the town celebrated its new heroes, the scars left by Vincent Riker's hateful act began to show. Whispers of fear and doubt crept into conversations, and some residents found themselves looking over their shoulders, wondering if the unity they had always taken for granted was truly as strong as they had believed. It was in this atmosphere of uncertainty that Margaret Hawkins, the beloved retired schoolteacher, stepped forward with a plan. She had watched the events of the Unity Parade unfold with a heavy heart, knowing that the true work of healing and rebuilding was only just beginning. "We need to come together," she said, her voice soft but firm as she addressed a small group of friends and neighbors gathered in her living room. "Not just in times of crisis, but every day. We need to show the world that Willowbrook's unity is more than just a parade. It's a way of life." Heads nodded in agreement and ideas began to flow. They talked of community gardens and neighborhood watch programs, of potluck dinners and volunteer projects. They spoke of the power of small acts of kindness and the importance of looking out for one another, no matter what challenges they faced. As the conversation continued, a sense of purpose and determination began to fill the room. The residents of Willowbrook had always been proud of their town, but now they saw it in a new light, as a beacon of hope and resilience in a world that often seemed filled with darkness and division. In the weeks that followed, Margaret's plan began to take shape. A vacant lot on the edge of town was transformed into a thriving community garden, where residents of all ages and backgrounds came together to plant, tend, and harvest fresh produce. The police department, inspired by Max's example, launched a new K-9 unit and expanded its community outreach programs, working to build trust and understanding between officers and the people they served. And everywhere, small acts of kindness began to multiply. Neighbors shoveled each other's driveways after snowstorms, and local businesses donated supplies and services to those in need. Children made cards and crafts for the elderly and homebound, while teenagers organized volunteer projects to beautify the town and support local charities. Through it all, Officer Hayes and Max remained a constant presence, their bond a shining example of the power of partnership and trust. They visited schools and community centers, sharing their story and encouraging others to find ways to make a difference in their own lives and the lives of those around them. Slowly but surely, the wounds left by Vincent Riker's act of hate began to heal. The town's unity, once tested, emerged stronger than ever, a testament to the resilience and compassion of its people. And as Willowbrook looked to the future, it did so with a renewed sense of purpose and a deep commitment to the values that had always defined it: love, hope, and the unbreakable bonds of community. As the weeks turned into months, the residents of Willowbrook settled into a new rhythm of life, one marked by a deeper sense of connection and purpose. The community garden had become a hub of activity, with families and friends gathering to tend to the plants, share recipes, and enjoy the fruits of their labor. Emily Reed, the young volunteer who had helped to decorate the Unity Parade viewing platform, found herself drawn to the garden, drawn to the sense of peace and belonging it provided. She had always been a quiet, introspective soul, more comfortable with plants and animals than with people. But as she worked alongside her neighbors, laughing and chatting as they pulled weeds and harvested vegetables, she began to feel a sense of kinship that she had never known before. It was in the garden that Emily met Jack, a kind-hearted young man who worked at the local hardware store. Jack had a gentle way with the plants, coaxing even the most stubborn seedlings to life with his patient care and attention. As they worked side by side, Emily found herself opening up to him, sharing her dreams and fears in a way that she had never done before. Meanwhile, Officer Hayes and Max continued their work in the community, their bond growing stronger with each passing day. They became a familiar sight around town, patrolling the streets and stopping to chat with residents, always ready with a friendly smile or a wagging tail. But even as the town healed and grew, the specter of Vincent Riker's hatred lingered in the shadows. Though he was safely behind bars, his trial looming on the horizon, some residents couldn't shake the fear that his act of violence had awakened something dark and dangerous in their midst. It was a fear that Margaret Hawkins, with her decades of experience and wisdom, understood all too well. She had seen the way that fear could divide communities, turning neighbor against neighbor and sowing the seeds of mistrust and suspicion. And so, with a heavy heart, she called a meeting of the town's leaders, Mayor Chen, Officer Hayes, and other prominent figures, to discuss how they could address the lingering effects of Riker's act and prevent something like it from happening again. "We can't let fear control us," Margaret said, her voice steady and resolute. "We have to face it head-on with honesty and compassion. We have to show the world that Willowbrook's unity is stronger than any one person's hate." The others nodded in agreement, their faces etched with determination. They talked long into the night, discussing strategies and ideas, brainstorming ways to bring the community together and foster a sense of belonging and purpose. In the end, they settled on a series of town hall meetings and community events, designed to encourage open and honest dialogue about the challenges facing Willowbrook. They would invite experts and speakers to share their perspectives and create safe spaces for residents to voice their concerns and ideas. It was a daunting task, but one that they knew was necessary if they were to truly heal the wounds left by Riker's act of hate. And as they left the meeting, their hearts heavy but their spirits lifted by a sense of shared purpose, they knew that they were not alone in their efforts. As the town hall meetings and community events began to take shape, the residents of Willowbrook found themselves drawn into a new kind of conversation, one that challenged them to confront their fears and biases and to see the world through the eyes of their neighbors. At first, the discussions were tentative and halting, marked by long silences and awkward pauses. But as the weeks went by, and as the facilitators and speakers created a safe and welcoming space for dialogue, the conversations began to flow more freely. People shared their stories and experiences, their hopes and dreams for the future of their town. They listened to one another with open hearts and minds, seeking to understand rather than to judge or condemn. Through it all, a sense of unity and purpose began to emerge, a recognition that, despite their differences, the residents of Willowbrook were all part of the same community, bound together by a shared love for their town and a commitment to making it a better place for all. One of the most powerful moments came during a session on the role of law enforcement in the community. Officer Hayes, his voice choked with emotion, shared his own story of struggle and redemption, of how he had once been a young man filled with anger and resentment, but had found purpose and meaning through his work with Max and the police department. "I know what it's like to feel lost and alone," he said, his eyes glistening with tears. "But I also know that there is always hope, always a chance for a new beginning. And I believe that, together, we can create a community where everyone feels valued and supported, no matter who they are or where they come from." His words struck a chord with the audience, and as he stepped down from the podium, the room erupted in applause. People surged forward to shake his hand and offer their thanks, their faces alight with a new sense of understanding and appreciation for the work that he and his fellow officers did every day. In the days and weeks that followed, the town hall meetings and community events continued, each one building on the momentum of the last. Slowly but surely, the wounds left by Vincent Riker's act of hate began to heal, replaced by a new sense of unity and purpose. And through it all, the community garden continued to thrive, a living symbol of the power of growth and renewal. Emily and Jack, their relationship blossoming like the flowers they tended, became leaders in the garden, organizing volunteer days and educational workshops for their neighbors. Margaret Hawkins, watching from the sidelines with a proud and knowing smile, knew that the seeds of change had been planted, and that Willowbrook would never be the same. The town had faced its darkest hour, and had emerged stronger and more united than ever before, a testament to the resilience and compassion of its people. As the trial of Vincent Riker approached, the residents of Willowbrook braced themselves for what they knew would be a difficult and emotional ordeal. The wounds left by his act of hate were still raw, and the prospect of reliving the events of that fateful day filled many with a sense of dread and apprehension. But even in the face of this new challenge, the town's unity and resilience shone through. Neighbors reached out to one another, offering words of comfort and support. The police department, led by Officer Hayes and Max, stepped up their patrols and community outreach efforts, working to ensure that everyone felt safe and protected. On the day of the trial, the courthouse was packed with residents of Willowbrook, all eager to see justice served. As the proceedings began, a hush fell over the room, broken only by the occasional sniffle or murmur of support. The prosecution, led by a fiery young attorney named Sarah Thompson, laid out their case with devastating clarity. They described the months of planning and preparation that had gone into Riker's twisted plot, the cold-blooded calculation with which he had sought to sow fear and division in the heart of the community. But even as they painted a picture of a man consumed by hate and resentment, they also spoke of the bravery and heroism of those who had stood against him, of Officer Hayes and Max, who had risked their lives to protect the innocent, and of the countless residents of Willowbrook who had come together in the face of tragedy to support and care for one another. As the trial wore on, emotions ran high. Tears flowed freely as witnesses took the stand to describe the terror and confusion of that day, the fear and helplessness they had felt as they watched the events unfold. But through it all, a sense of unity and purpose remained. The residents of Willowbrook, bound together by their shared love for their town and their commitment to one another, refused to let Rikers' hate define them. They held their heads high, their eyes fixed on a future that was brighter and more hopeful than ever before. In the end, the jury returned a unanimous verdict, guilty on all counts. As the judge handed down the sentence, a cheer went up from the gallery, a cry of relief and vindication that echoed through the halls of the courthouse. And as the residents of Willowbrook filed out of the courtroom, their hearts heavy but their spirits lifted by a sense of justice and closure, they knew that they had faced their greatest challenge and emerged stronger than ever before. In the days and weeks that followed, life in Willowbrook slowly returned to normal. The community garden continued to thrive, its bounty a reminder of the power of growth and renewal. The police department, bolstered by a new sense of purpose and connection to the community, redoubled their efforts to serve and protect. And everywhere, small acts of kindness and compassion continued to multiply, a testament to the enduring spirit of a town that had faced the darkness and emerged into the light. Margaret Hawkins, watching it all unfold with a knowing smile, knew that Willowbrook had been forever changed by the events of that fateful day. But she also knew that the town's unity and resilience had been forged in the fires of adversity, and that nothing could ever tear it apart. As she sat in her garden, surrounded by the fruits of her labor and the love of her community, she knew that Willowbrook had truly become a beacon of hope and light in a world that often seemed filled with darkness and despair. And she knew that, no matter what challenges lay ahead, the town would always stand together, united in its commitment to one another and to a brighter, more compassionate future for all. In the months following the trial, Willowbrook settled into a new normal, one marked by a deeper sense of connection and purpose than ever before. The town had been through a crucible, tested in ways that few communities ever were, and had emerged stronger and more united because of it. Everywhere, signs of this newfound unity were evident. In the community garden, where neighbors of all ages and backgrounds came together to tend the plants and share in the bounty. In the schools, where teachers and students alike worked to create a culture of kindness and inclusion. And in the streets, where the police department's community outreach efforts had helped to foster a new sense of trust and understanding between officers and the people they served. But even as Willowbrook basked in the glow of its triumph, new challenges began to emerge. The economic fallout from the pandemic had hit the town hard, leaving many residents struggling to make ends meet. Small businesses, the lifeblood of the community, were forced to close their doors, while others teetered on the brink of collapse. Faced with this new crisis, the leaders of Willowbrook once again came together to chart a path forward. Mayor Chun, working closely with the town council and community organizations, launched a series of initiatives designed to support those who had been hit hardest by the downturn. They created a small business relief fund, offering grants and low-interest loans to help keep local shops and restaurants afloat. They expanded food assistance programs and job training initiatives, working to ensure that no one in Willowbrook would go hungry or without the skills they needed to succeed. And through it all, the residents of the town rallied around one another, just as they had in the wake of Vincent Rikers' act of hate. They organized food drives and clothing swaps, volunteered at local charities and community centers, and reached out to their neighbors in need with offers of help and support. One of the most powerful examples of this community spirit came from an unlikely source: the high school students of Willowbrook. Led by a group of enterprising young people, including Emily and Jack, who had become leaders in their own right, the students launched a series of service projects designed to make a difference in the lives of those around them. They organized a tutoring program for struggling elementary school students, partnered with local businesses to create internship and job shadowing opportunities, and even started their own nonprofit organization dedicated to promoting kindness and compassion in the community. Their efforts quickly gained attention, not just in Willowbrook but across the country. Media outlets picked up on their story, highlighting the incredible resilience and generosity of a group of young people who had refused to let adversity define them. And as the students of Willowbrook High School walked across the stage at their graduation ceremony, their heads held high and their hearts filled with pride, they knew that they had become a symbol of something much larger than themselves, a testament to the power of unity, hope, and the unbreakable bonds of community. As the town looked to the future, it did so with a renewed sense of purpose and a deep commitment to the values that had always defined it. Willowbrook had been through the fire and had emerged stronger and more compassionate than ever before, a beacon of light in a world that often seemed filled with darkness and despair. And though the road ahead would undoubtedly be long and difficult, the residents of Willowbrook knew that they would face it together, united in their love for their town and their commitment to one another. For in the end, that was what truly mattered, and not the challenges they faced, but the strength and resilience of the community that would always stand together, no matter what the future might bring. As the years passed, Willowbrook continued to thrive, its spirit of unity and compassion growing stronger with each passing day. The community garden, once a symbol of hope and renewal in the wake of tragedy, had become a fixture of the town, a place where neighbors came together to share in the bounty of the earth and the joy of each other's company. Emily and Jack, now married and expecting their first child, had become leaders in the garden, working tirelessly to expand its reach and impact. They have partnered with local schools and community organizations to create educational programs and workshops, teaching young people about the importance of sustainability, healthy eating, and community building. Their efforts had not gone unnoticed. The garden had attracted the attention of national media outlets and environmental organizations, who held it up as a model of what was possible when communities came together to create something truly special. But even as Willowbrook basked in the glow of its success, new challenges continued to emerge. Climate change, long a looming threat on the horizon, had begun to make itself felt in the town, with increasingly severe weather events and rising temperatures taking their toll on crops and infrastructure alike. Faced with this new crisis, the residents of Willowbrook once again came together to chart a path forward. The town council, working closely with environmental experts and community leaders, launched a series of initiatives designed to make the town more resilient and sustainable in the face of a changing climate. They invested in renewable energy and green infrastructure, partnered with local farmers to promote sustainable agriculture practices, and worked to educate the public about the importance of conservation and environmental stewardship. And through it all, the spirit of unity and compassion that had always defined Willowbrook shone through. Neighbors helped each other to weather the storms, both literal and figurative, that threatened to tear the town apart. They shared resources and knowledge, volunteered their time and energy to support those in need, and refused to let the challenges they faced define them. One of the most powerful examples of this community spirit came from the police department, which had undergone a remarkable transformation in the years since Vincent Riker's attack. Under the leadership of Officer Hayes, who had been promoted to Chief of Police, the department had become a model of community policing, a force dedicated to serving and protecting the people of Willowbrook with compassion, integrity, and respect. Max, now a beloved figure in the town, had become a symbol of this transformation, a reminder of the power of partnership and trust between law enforcement and the communities they served. He had retired from active duty, but still made regular appearances at schools and community events, his tail wagging and his eyes shining with the joy of being surrounded by the people he loved. As Willowbrook looked to the future, it did so with a sense of hope and determination that had been forged in the fires of adversity. The town had faced its share of challenges and setbacks, but had emerged stronger and more united because of them. And though the road ahead would undoubtedly be long and difficult, the residents of Willowbrook knew that they would face it together, guided by the values of compassion, resilience, and unity that had always defined them. For in the end, that was what truly mattered, and not the storms that raged around them, but the unbreakable bonds of community that would always see them through, no matter what the future might bring. As the years turned into decades, Willowbrook continued to evolve and change, shaped by the countless acts of kindness and compassion that had become the hallmark of the town. The community garden, once a small plot of land on the edge of town, had grown into a sprawling network of urban farms and green spaces, providing fresh, healthy food to residents, and serving as a model of sustainable agriculture for communities around the world. Emily and Jack, now the proud parents of 2 young children, had become leaders in this movement, working tirelessly to promote food justice and environmental stewardship in Willowbrook and beyond. They had founded a non-profit organization dedicated to these causes, partnering with local schools, businesses, and government agencies to create a more just and sustainable future for all. Their efforts had not gone unnoticed. Willowbrook had become a beacon of hope and inspiration for communities around the country, a shining example of what was possible when people came together to create something truly special. But even as the town basked in the glow of its success, the specter of Vincent Riker's hatred continued to linger in the shadows. Though he had been behind bars for decades, his legacy of fear and division had left a mark on the town that could never be fully erased. It was a reality that Officer Hayes, now retired from the police force but still deeply involved in the community, knew all too well. He had seen firsthand the damage that hate and intolerance could do, the way it could tear communities apart and leave scars that never fully healed. But he had also seen the power of love and compassion to heal those wounds, to bring people together in the face of even the darkest of challenges. And as he looked out over the town that had become his home, he knew that Willowbrook had become a testament to that power, a living, breathing example of what was possible when people chose to stand together, united in their commitment to one another. It was a lesson that the town's young people had taken to heart. The students of Willowbrook High School, now the leaders of a new generation, had grown up in a community that valued kindness, compassion, and unity above all else. They had seen firsthand the power of these values to transform lives and create a better world for all. And as they looked to the future, they did so with a sense of hope and determination that had been forged in the crucible of their town's history. They knew that the road ahead would be long and difficult, that there would be challenges and setbacks along the way. As the 50th anniversary of the Unity Parade approached, the residents of Willowbrook found themselves reflecting on the long and winding road that had brought them to this moment. So much had changed in the decades since that fateful day when Vincent Riker's hatred had threatened to tear the town apart. But even as they looked back on the challenges and triumphs of the past, the people of Willowbrook knew that their greatest achievements lay not in the accolades and recognition they had received, but in the quiet, everyday acts of kindness and compassion that had become the lifeblood of their community. It was a legacy that was embodied in the lives of people like Emily and Jack, who had dedicated themselves to creating a more just and sustainable world for all. It was a legacy that was carried on by the students of Willowbrook High School, who had grown up in a community that valued empathy, resilience, and unity above all else. And it was a legacy that was honored by the town's elders, people like Margaret Hawkins and Officer Hayes, who had seen Willowbrook through its darkest hours and emerged with a renewed sense of hope and purpose. As the anniversary celebrations began, the town came together in a spirit of joy and remembrance. There were parades and festivals, concerts and plays, all celebrating the enduring spirit of a community that had faced the darkness and emerged into the light. But perhaps the most poignant moment came at the end of the festivities, as the residents of Willowbrook gathered in the town square for a candlelight vigil. As the flames flickered in the darkness, casting a warm glow over the faces of young and old alike, a hush fell over the crowd. And then, from somewhere in the midst of the gathering, a voice began to sing. It was a simple melody, one that had been passed down through generations of Willowbrook families, a song of hope and unity, of the unbreakable bonds of community that had always held the town together. As the music swelled, more and more voices joined in, until the entire town was singing as one. And in that moment, as the harmony of their voices rose into the night sky, the residents of Willowbrook knew that they had truly achieved something remarkable, not just a victory over hatred and division, but a testament to the power of love and compassion to transform the world. In the years that followed, Willowbrook continued to thrive, its spirit of unity and purpose growing stronger with each passing day. The town had become a model for communities around the world, a shining example of what was possible when people came together to create something truly special. But even as the town basked in the glow of its success, the residents of Willowbrook knew that their work was far from finished. The world was still a place of great challenge and uncertainty, and there would always be those who sought to divide and destroy rather than unite and heal. It was a challenge that the young people of Willowbrook, now the leaders of a new generation, were determined to meet head-on. They had grown up in a community that valued compassion, resilience, and unity above all else, and they were determined to carry those values forward into the wider world. Some of them, like Emily and Jack's children, followed in their parents' footsteps, dedicating themselves to the cause of environmental justice and sustainability. Others found their calling in fields like education, healthcare, and social work, using their skills and passion to create a more just and equitable world for all. But no matter where their paths led them, the young people of Willowbrook carried with them the lessons and values that had been instilled in them by their community. They knew that the road ahead would be long and difficult, that there would be setbacks and challenges along the way, but they also knew that they had the strength and resilience to face those challenges head-on, guided by the unbreakable bonds of love and compassion that had always held Willowbrook together. They knew that, no matter what the future might bring, they would always have a home and a family in the town that had raised them. And so, as the sun rose over Willowbrook on another beautiful morning, the residents of the town went about their daily lives with a sense of purpose and gratitude. They tended their gardens and volunteered at local schools, working to build a more just and sustainable world for all. And through it all, they held fast to the values that had always guided them, the values of kindness, compassion, and unity that had seen them through the darkest of times and into the brightest of futures. For they knew that, in the end, those values were the true source of their strength, the unbreakable foundation upon which the enduring spirit of Willowbrook had been built. And so, as the years turned into decades and the decades into generations, the story of Willowbrook lived on, a testament to the power of community, resilience, and hope in the face of even the greatest of challenges. The town had faced its share of trials and tribulations, from economic downturns to natural disasters to the ever-present specter of hatred and division. But through it all, the residents of Willowbrook had held fast to the values that had always guided them, the unbreakable bonds of love and compassion that had seen them through the darkest of times. It was a legacy that was passed down from parent to child, from teacher to student, from neighbor to neighbor, a living, breathing testament to the enduring power of the human spirit. And as the world around them continued to change and evolve, the people of Willowbrook knew that they would always have a role to play in shaping that change for the better. They were the guardians of a precious flame, the keepers of a sacred trust, the knowledge that, no matter how dark the night may seem, there is always a dawn waiting on the other side. And as long as they held fast to that knowledge, as long as they continued to stand together in the face of adversity and uncertainty, there was nothing they could not achieve. And so, on a warm summer evening, as the sun began to set over the hills and valleys of Willowbrook, the residents of the town gathered once more in the square where it had all begun. They came from all walks of life, young and old, rich and poor, of every race and creed and color. And as they stood there together, their faces lit by the soft glow of the setting sun, they knew that they were part of something greater than themselves, a living, breathing testament to the power of community and the unbreakable bonds of love and compassion that had always held them together. For they were the people of Willowbrook, the inheritors of a proud legacy, the guardians of a bright and shining future. And as long as they held fast to the values that had always guided them, as long as they continued to stand together in the face of whatever challenges the world might bring, there was nothing they could not achieve. And so, with hearts full of hope and eyes fixed on the horizon, the residents of Willowbrook stepped forward into the future, ready to face whatever lay ahead, secure in the knowledge that they would always have each other, and that together, there was nothing they could not overcome.